Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And every single morning we come to you for a conversation where we talk about love, life, relationships, marriage, the challenges, the complications, and how to overcome them. You know, on yesterday we were talking about controlling habits or signs of a partner, and it was a great conversation. We gave you many points, and today what we're doing is we're transitioning into a part two. But before we do that, this weekend we had an intensive with a couple who drove down from the Carolinas, and it was transformational. And for every couple is something different, Danielle. Mm-hmm. This particular couple, there was an issue of just transparency and vulnerability and opening up one's heart, and they were able to make tremendous breakthrough. That's what happens when you have uninterrupted time to go deep into a process that can begin to unpack some things.
Yeah, awesome.
And so, listen, guys, if you are in need of help, you know how to reach us. It's couplesacademy.org. You can set up a discovery call at 678-200-8996. But before we get started with the show, we want you to share, like, and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and that is our handle at Couples Academy. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the show. We'll be right back right after this. Let's get it. We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, founders of Couples Academy, a private practice dedicated to saving marriages around the world.
We're not just recognized authorities on relationships. We're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission? To change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships.
This is the Couples Academy show.
Welcome back. We are talking about how to deal with a controlling partner. We talked about what it is, and we helped you identify if you are actually in a relationship with somebody who's controlling yesterday. But on today, we're going to talk about how to deal with it. And it's interesting. I overheard some conversations yesterday online, scrolling through the feed, about this post, tweets that Kanye West has been putting out about Kim Kardashian and her mother, and talking about how he feels like he's in an episode of Get Out, the movie, which is crazy, right?
That was a movie.
And calling them white supremacists and everything else under the sun. And I was thinking about that in light of control, because it always seemed like whenever Kanye does have anything to say, he's indicating control when it comes to Kim. However, I think it's interesting that he also is somebody that is notable for having mental health issues, right? It is said that he is bipolar. You know, it's not any mystery to everyone that he goes through all these ups and downs. And so what do you do when you have crisis in your relationship? You have somebody who appears to be controlling. You have someone else with mental health issues that might actually need some control or some guidance in some way. Matter of fact, yesterday somebody had mentioned, what if it's not actually control, but I'm actually trying to help this person help themselves, right? Because they don't know what's best for them. And sometimes we're in those situations. Yeah. And so today when we talk about how to deal with a controlling person, we can't do that and kind of put it all encompassing in one basket. There are parts to this. There are different variations of control. There are things that just happen on a day-to-day between us, right? Like, you know, if I want to decide where we're gonna eat for dinner, right? Do I get the control, or does Hassani get the control? And do we battle about that? Or there are major... Say that again.
Couples actually do battle about that.
Couples actually do. Oh,
That's true.
Some couples, there are some folks out there that literally open up their eyes every day thinking of a way to get into some level of offense. There are some people that just live their lives that way. But when it comes to control, there are some lighter issues that we can look at. And then there are some serious issues, like who's going to control the finances, right? If I want to control the finances, but I don't have the skill, should I be controlling the finances? How do we ebb and flow through these things? And then there are major things like, you know, we have interventions for family members all the time when somebody is an alcoholic, or when somebody is experiencing drug abuse, or when someone has mental health issues. What are we going to do? There are many cases where other people have to take control of your life. So we don't want to put it all in one basket. We want to kind of break this thing down, if that makes sense.
Let's get it.
Yeah. So the first part of this is handling minor instances of controlling behavior, right? And you know what? I didn't even say hello to my people I jumped in so quick. Were you going to say hello to my people?
I mean, I could say hello to Vincent and Jay and Facebook user and Clarence and Kia and Al, Angela, Dee Dee. They're still coming in. LaShawn, good morning. Good to see you all. Teray, they are here. They're ready to go. Let's get into this topic.
It's important for me to acknowledge you because I appreciate you. I appreciate you showing up every day. I appreciate you liking, subscribing, and sharing, and that you have hit that notification bell to be on with us today. So I never want to miss a moment to acknowledge y'all. I really appreciate you showing up every day. So again, handling minor instances of a controlling behavior, which is one of the things that I talked about. And look, let's just give this example. Here, let's do this. Right here, stick your finger in there. Can they see that? Look. All right, now pull against. Get your finger in there. Okay, now pull against. Pull against. Okay, do you see?
Yeah.
Frustration. Stop trying to control me. Tug of war, tug of war, tug of war. Right? But hold on. What if I just let go? What if I just release? All of a sudden, I'm free. That is the law of least resistance, which I've been learning quite a bit about and practicing in my own life. And what that looks like is there are some things that you just cannot control. And sometimes the best way to get in control of a situation is to get in control of yourself and how you're showing up in the instance. Because guess what? You can't tug of war with me if I'm not pulling. Can you? Right? Who's going to fall down?
This is true.
The puller. So I have to actually be a participant in the tug of war, and I don't have to be. It's the law of least resistance. So step one would actually be to stay calm, right? How often do you get into a heated battle about something? You have just jumped the gun. You have heard your spouse say something about, I thought you were going to wash the dishes. And it's like, I am going to wash the dishes. Why do you need to control me? I'll wash them when I get to it. I mean, how often does that happen?
It happens.
Right? And now we have spiraled down this drain and we're arguing about something super simple. And sometimes we often just need to stay calm.
Yeah. Number two, and this is a really good one, ask the controller to develop a plan. Now, a person who likes to control always wants to be in the seat of authority, the seat of decision making, and they want to be able to say, it was my idea. And so one thing that you can attempt to do is say, listen, would you help me develop a plan? Because I'm having a struggle here, right? And so when you bring their controlling behavior to them, initially, they may be resistant by you just saying, you're such a control freak, you're trying to control me. But a different way of saying it is like, you know what, I just feel like there's certain aspects of our marriage, of our relationship where I feel micromanaged, and I want you to help me come up with a plan. So in essence, you're feeding into their need to control, but you're helping them to uncontrol themselves in certain areas by coming up with a plan where they no longer need to have the need to control.
Yeah.
And then delegation of responsibilities begin to happen between you and your partner because you get freedoms that you wouldn't have had if they weren't a part of that process.
Absolutely. And again, this is handling minor instance of controlling behavior because there are extremes, but that's a great way to handle that. The third one would be being empathetic. Oh, hold on, guys, this is a live show. When I'm reading my notes, I need you to jump over there. Okay. So being empathetic, guys, because here's the deal. When it comes to being empathetic, when you know that you're dealing with a partner that tends to be controlling, you already know they have a controlling nature. And if I jump over to the Enneagram side of things, there are certain personality styles that tend to be more controlling than others. They just have to have it their way. They need to be the one that runs the board meetings. They are the leader of the PTA, right? They are the type A personalities and they make sure they manage everything. They're the type of person, they don't want you to help them clean their kitchen after Thanksgiving because there's a way about how they put the dishes away and they do their thing, right? And so we already know we're dealing with a controlling person. They have a controlling nature. Be empathetic because it could be frustrating to that person when things feel, disorganized or disarrayed, right? And so knowing your partner, if you know good and well that, hey, they need their space. Don't be up in their kitchen when they're cooking, because they need 30 feet of space to get their mind together and get their organization. have some empathy, and try to find ways to allow them to have that space that they need to do that. Everything doesn't have to be a battle. We choose our battles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next point, ask constructive questions. See, a lot of times when the controller comes, they're coming and they're demanding certain things, or they're making accusations, or they're telling you how you're wrong. But what you can do in a non-defensive way is turn it right back towards them and say, well, listen, this expectation that you have of me seems to be unrealistic. Did you share with me exactly what you needed me to do? Were you crystal clear in this expectation that you feel that somehow I've disappointed you? So in essence, a lot of times they're so caught up in their need for power and control that they don't realize where they faulted and where they've kind of gone off. And so if you bring it to their awareness, hopefully they'll be able to take a look at themselves. And if they don't, then listen, you can choose to walk away from that conversation. I think you just talked about that in essence. You don't have to be willing to allow yourself to sit in a situation where they're demeaning, they're disrespectful, and they continue to control you. And you can say, listen, until you're ready to deal with this in a respectful way, this conversation is over. That's one way to shift that behavior moving forward.
So that's just dealing with the simple day-to-day life stuff. And then we have part 2, which is correcting reoccurring patterns of controlling behavior. Because many of you are sitting out there saying, yeah, well, I've done all of that and I hear you, but it just doesn't work. No matter what I try to do, they want to control me. They want to control my coming. They want to control my going. They just want to be in control. And there are instances where that takes place. And so there are still methods to manage that. So the next one here would be prepared for the denial. Because what happens is you get into these altercations because you refuse to communicate about it anymore. So you're so frustrated. You're both frustrated. You're dealing with somebody who's trying to control you. And so you shut down. But actually, if you were to sit down with the person to try to have a conversation with them, you should be prepared for them to deny it. I'm not trying to control you. I just see the forest before the trees, or whatever, the trees through the forest. I just know that if you go down this path, it's not going to be good for you, right? A lot of times the controlling person actually does think that they have your best interest at heart, but at the end of the day, they are controlling and they may not be aware of it. And it's your job to, in the best way, bring that to their awareness that, no, dude, this is controlling behavior. And let me, here's the receipts on this. And we've had these conversations before. And what do I need to do to support you so that you are aware that when you start moving into this controlling behavior?
And we've talked about the importance of when you have this conversation and you bring it up to your partner that they are being controlling, that you really check the environment. Are you in the right place? Is it the right time? Is it the right atmosphere? Are you making sure that you're not communicating out of emotion so that they can receive the truth of what you're saying and they're not caught up in your tone, they're not caught up in your frustration, they're not caught up in your off-putting body language? Because in order for them to really get out of the messaging that you're trying to deliver, the mood has to be appropriate. And so we talk about this all the time, creating a healthy environment to have that level of dialogue. Now, another thing you can do is you can begin to set boundaries. Now, one of the ways to do that is we have something that we work with couples with all the time. It's a worksheet where we guide them through a brainstorming process. So in essence, if I am the complaining spouse and I'm saying, listen, babe, I think you're a bit controlling. There is a worksheet that we take them through that allows them to identify the issue and then share each other's perspective on the issue. And then I, as the one who brought up the issue, have to brainstorm possible solutions to solving the problem. Because it's not just enough to say you need to stop doing it. I've got to provide you with some options, some pathways, some methodology to overcome your issue. But here's the deal. You have to do the same thing as well. The partner who is controlling has to also come up with suggestions about how they can begin to solve the problem. So you're brain dumping. And when you're brain dumping, you're throwing everything up against the wall to see what sticks. And then you begin to negotiate back and forth till you reach a place where you both are in mutual agreement about the pathway to overcome that issue. So not only are you just bringing them the problem, you're offering them a solution and you're allowing them to be a solution to their own problem.
I love it.
And then boundaries can be properly set.
I love that because that leads into our next one and it makes it super easy, actually, and that is enforcing the consequences. Because to Hassani's point, if you have sat down and come to an agreement on these things, we have looked at the issues and we have set healthy boundaries and we both have come to agreement on them. You know, you're supposed to walk away from that conversation feeling pretty good. Like, okay, cool. We got this. But then you have crossed the boundaries because we naturally go back to our natural inclinations, right? We become unconscious again because those conversations wake us up to things that are offending our partner. And then we go about our lives and we go back to sleep and we start doing the things that we do. Hence why we have to have empathy for people, because not all the time are people doing it on purpose, right? But when they cross the boundaries, now you must enforce the consequences. And I don't like for people to say, bet I'm going to enforce these consequences on people. Now, nope, you've crossed my line. And now that's the reason for you to have some issue, because people look for that. No, it's not about withholding things and shutting people down. It's about, okay, we set these boundaries and now you have proven to me that I can't trust you to uphold these boundaries. And now I have to enforce consequences. And I'm going to just use a simple example so that people don't go militant on us with this. But you think about like a friend that might borrow your clothes, right? And never give them back, right? So you say to your friend, listen, I loan you clothes and I need you to give them back to me. It's a loan. That means one day I would like to see them again. If you set that boundary and your friend is like, cool, yes, I could do that, and then they don't, the consequence would be established that if you can't return the clothes that I loan you, I cannot loan you clothes. Do you see? It's not like we gonna shut people down, cut people off, ruin and end relationships. It's really coming up with practical boundaries and then practical consequences that make sense and protect your emotions.
It's so interesting. When I was in college, I remember hearing this guy say, he said, listen, if you ever want to get somebody out of your life, let them borrow something that's important to you, because they won't give it back and that'll just end the relationship. And I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I've thought about the things that I've loaned people and for years would never see it. And then when you ask for it, they mad at you.
Yeah, I had to use that because actually that's the thing between me and my friend. Like, I be borrowing her stuff and not giving it back. So she's like, look, we're not loaning you nothing no more. It's just like, I just am so busy. I'm not trying to keep it, I promise. But you know what? To put that in the confines of marriage, like simple things, like, okay, everybody knows Hassani does not cook. I do most of the cooking. He can make some meat.
I don't think everybody knows that.
He can make some mean
Now
pancakes.
Everybody knows that.
He makes some mean pancakes. Even the kids say he makes the best pancakes, but he is not really the primary cook. And he doesn't necessarily know his way around the kitchen like that. So we have made a boundary about pots, right? Because my coated pots, Hassani would be in there cutting steak in a pot, scratching the enamel off, right? Remember those days? And so the boundary was, dude, you have to use plastic or wood in these pots. Otherwise, you don't use these pots. I will have some other pots that have already been scraped and scratched up that you can use instead of you using the good pots that are meant for using plastic and other things like that. So you can see how that's a healthy, logical, fair boundary within a relationship that's a real issue. Things like this happen all the time, like little issues that can mount, that all you need to do is establish a boundary or rule, and here are the consequences that you both agree to. Because the one thing about being in a relationship with somebody is that you really can't set consequences it's harder to set consequences within your marriage that you don't both agree to, because now you're at odds, and we want to avoid that at all costs.
And so, another way of looking at that is by us having that boundary, it allows us both to remain in our area of competence, because we have different strengths and weaknesses, right? And so if you have a weakness, you don't want to get too comfortable in your weakness, because we all should grow and develop. That's why I can make some mean pancakes, because I had to get to the place where I could do that. A hot dog every now and then, a hamburger every now and then and again. But as I'm developing my area of competency, I remain out of that space until I become competent. And so in a relationship, to keep you two from fussing and fighting and arguing, going back and forth, just really have a conversation. What are your strengths? Stay in that lane.
Stay in
what
your
are my
lane.
strengths? Stay in my lane. And that's how you have something that's fluid.
And that speaks to the whole financial thing. Like, if you're good with the finances, you handle it. If you're good with the house care and keeping up things, you handle it. Like, whatever it is that you're good at, you raise up in that area and set the boundaries. And boundaries sound so like, boundary. But it's so important to have them. And a lot of people neglect to have boundaries, and they end up feeling like, a rug just walked over and anything goes. Boundaries are healthy for you to have as an individual and as a couple.
Absolutely.
I want to jump over here to some comments. Kia has said, LOL, I hate others in my kitchen. And I understand that. Sometimes you really just don't want somebody hovering over your pot, taking a peek and looking. It's not done yet. It's like art, right? Do you want somebody to see your painting before it's done? You don't, because you don't have the full image and the vision of what's about to go down here. So stay out of my pots. So I understand that. Another comment is from it moves. Somebody's talking. ARS is what practical consequences are appropriate for infidelity. Now, that's a good one. Jump on that one.
Well, first of all, that takes us to our next point, right? The next point is seek counseling. Like, it's got to be something that is a non-negotiable. If there's been an offense of betrayal, infidelity, cheating, whatever colloquialism you want to give for it, make sure you do your best to go to counseling. And if they want a relationship, listen, if you want to move forward, then this is what we're going to have to do. Period, point blank.
Yeah.
Because issues have to be addressed and resolved and restored. And not only do you need individual work, but you need work as a couple. And so that's why you want the marital recovery, the individual recovery process, as well as the affair recovery process, because it's critically important. Other things that you can do in terms of consequences, well, guess what? Trust has been violated. And so now there's got to be transparency in that relationship. So if you lived a secret life, if you compartmentalize aspects of your life, you can't do that anymore. Yeah. We have to get used to a new norm. And so if I blindly trusted you and it was violated, then we have to have a new relational dynamic. So the idea of just get over it, it happened, let's just move on, just trust me again, let's just make it the way it was. Well, there's a journey to get back to the way it was. And truth be told, I don't know if I want it to be the way it was, because the way that it was led to where we are in the first place. And so you need to, what we call, have a relational code of ethics or shared value system as to what life will look like. And these are just some practical things.
Those are just a few, right? There's so many boundaries and consequences that you need to set as it relates to infidelity. And it gets into very granular details when we're talking to an actual couple on what that actually means for them. It's hard to put a blanket answer out there because you talk to one couple and they have a whole different set of values than us even, right? So it really matters your set of values and what it means to you. As a matter of fact, your boundaries are rooted in your values. And so if you don't know what your values are, and we don't know what your values are, it's hard to put a blanket statement on that. But to Hassani's point, very, very good points is what I wanted to say.
And here's the other piece of it is, it's important that you have a shared value. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that couples have. They're not on the same page. They don't have any type of alignment. I think like this, you think like that. I do this, you do that. And we are as far apart as the East is from the West. And so when a couple comes together and they have their own relational code of ethics, so in essence it's saying, if it works for Hassani and doesn't work for Danielle, then guess what? It doesn't work for the marriage. If it works for Danielle and doesn't work for Hassani, it doesn't work for this marriage. Right. And if we're committed to this marriage, then that means that we're willing to really meet in the middle and not be so stuck in our own individual space to bring about harmony, to bring about togetherness so that we can move forward.
And one more thing on that, because most couples that come to us are not there yet. Right? The reason why they come to the Couples Academy's door is because they did not have a shared set of values. That's what brought them to us. And so the hope in that is that we can show you how to have a shared set of values and boundaries that you set around your marriage to protect you from the outsiders. And that's what this is all about. We're mostly setting up all these boundaries against one another. And Hassani and I really set up our boundaries and our guidelines to protect each other. And that's what is the difference, because I can hear, people in their heads thinking, yes, I'm going to set up this boundary against him, or I'm going to set up this boundary against her. It's really not about that. It's about having the communication flow in your marriage, setting up boundaries that respect each other's individual desires and needs, and then setting up boundaries that protect the marriage.
And this is exactly why you need a third party, a counselor, a coach, whoever you go to help you in that conversation, because when you're on two opposite ends of the spectrum, you're fighting and vying for your own space and position, and you need somebody to help navigate that conversation so that you can get on one accord.
So the next part here, and this kind of encapsulates all of that, like, you know, when you're dealing with lighthearted issues down to the serious issues, it's important for you to learn how to regain the control of your own life, because many of you listening are in relationships that just are going through some things, and you're not yet at a point where you can come together and work these things out with your spouse. What's the next one here? The first point is do not allow yourself to be isolated. And that's a big one, because oftentimes when you're dealing with serious control issues in your partner, the first thing that they want to do, and we talked about this yesterday, is isolate you. They want to isolate you from your friends who love you and will speak life into you. They want to isolate you from your family, any outside influence that would kind of help you to. There's a lot of times a controlling person that is trying to manipulate and run your life. They don't want you to think outside the box. They don't want you to think at all. They just want you to do what they say. And so don't isolate yourself. Reach out, find somebody that can speak life into you and give you balance and help you to actually see what's going on.
The next thing you have to do, and this is so critically important, you have to learn how to avoid internalizing criticism, because your spouse, who's very controlling, can be very judgmental and very critical and point out every fault, flaw, idiosyncrasy, everything that you have that they do not like. And it's very easy for you to begin to internalize. And now you see yourself through their lenses. You see yourself through their goggles instead of the goggles of God. And so here's the reality. They say, you know, in terms of relationships, when, like, let's just say your wife is a controlling person, they say that they have makers of men and breakers of men. Makers of men are women who know how to speak life into, who know how to edify, encourage, esteem, build up, speak to the potential of that individual. Danielle would talk all the time about how it's important for you to speak to the seed inside of your man, not the weeds that surround your man, because whatever you speak into, you give attention to and begins to grow and develop in that person. And so you don't want to be a breaker of men, you want to be a maker. Breakers of those who tear them down, whose words become daggers that cut into the heart of a man and really demoralizes him. And men are guilty of the same thing, causing their women to have low self-esteem, low self-worth. They begin to question their own, their own identity. And that's what happens when you've come into a relationship whole and complete. And the longer you're in it, the more broken you are, because you're listening to the voices of negativity, doubt, fear, and lies that now begins to consume you.
And isn't it interesting how, you know, folks tend to attract folks that know how to get to the nerve that they have, the actual nerve, right? Whatever the idiosyncrasies or issues that you feel about yourself, whatever your insecurities are, they learn them, you know, especially narcissistic controlling people, right? They know how to control you and speak things, negative things to you that you already thought about yourself. And that really goes into what Hassani is saying. We're supposed to actually speak life. We're supposed to actually tell them, no, those things are wrong, what you've always thought about yourself. Let me show you who you really are. Let me help unearth all the gifts inside of you. But instead, when you're dealing with a controlling person that uses criticism, they are actually using the hurt and the insecurities that you have against you. And so now you're battling that. So you have to be aware of it. And you have to, as Hassani says, go to self and know what God has put in you, and hold on to your personal values when you're dealing with somebody who's using criticism. And that brings us to the next one. Don't feel guilty. Okay? Because what will happen is, when you're dealing with somebody super controlling, is that they will use guilt to hold you there. Things like, you know, you owe me, I was there for you when, and all these things, when you try to get your voice, you know, and say, you know what, I'm not going to be controlled by this. I'm actually going to go talk to my pastor and let him be a third party in this situation, because for years I've been asking you, can we talk to someone? And you've been controlling me, so I've had no one to talk to. So I'm going to go talk to somebody who I know is safe and secure, is neutral, right? Because what we don't want to do is blow the whole thing up by starting to talk to family and friends. And oh my God, I saw this Facebook Live the other day where this husband literally recorded his wife cheating, calls his parents in, invites her over, acting like he was going to gift her with something, and then blows up her spot in front of the whole family. Her recorded voice cheating and making plans to go be with another man. There is no repairing that. I mean, like, if that's your plan, if you want to just literally ignite an atomic bomb in the middle of your relationship and blow everybody's life up because everyone who was an earshot away from that was affected by that. Can you imagine?
You know the damage in that?
The damage to the in-laws, too.
It's damage to all parties involved, but here's the real damage, right? So I, in my knee-jerk reaction of shock, of pain, of hurt, I'm going to blow your spot up. So whether it's that scenario or whether I take photos of you and post them, on social media.
Or around your job, the parking lot, which has been done.
Created flyers of their cheating spouse and placed them on windshields of cars in a parking lot, billboards, all types of things. Very common. Exposing that spouse. And then after their entire reputation has been destroyed, they have a change of heart and they want to restore the relationship.
Too late.
And they want to work on things. Yeah. And so it just becomes extremely challenging to kind of work your way back. That's why when this thing first happens, you want to keep that thing locked and loaded and closed in a safe community before you release that to the world.
Right, but to the point not to feel guilty about, reaching out and getting the support that you need. Don't take it to the extreme is the whole point, Do what is necessary to get the help. And that's what this is all about. How can I help my marriage? And if it means stepping out to somebody who's safe and secure and having a conversation to get some insight, then do that.
The next step, we're almost done, folks. Stay true to your beliefs. Now, we know that a controlling person may want to control every aspect and facet of your life. Like, for instance, truth be told, sometimes we come into relationships and we just think different. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican. I'm a little bit more liberal, you're a little bit more conservative. And so I'm beat down. I'm told that I'm wrong. I'm told that I'm stupid because I have a different opinion. And so we say this all the time. God is looking for oneness, not sameness. He doesn't want you to be the same. He wants the benefit of your unique difference to come into a relationship to make it even a better whole. And so if you have certain views, political views, or maybe there's a faith tradition, or maybe there's cultural norms and values that you hold on to, don't allow your partner to tell you that the way that you function and operate and think, if it's true to you, your true nature, is wrong, unless it is wrong. I mean, that's a different situation when you're wrong and you need to be corrected, be open. But if it's a matter of, listen, I like such and such, and I shouldn't be beat up and told that I'm bad for liking such and such. If you like me, you will like that I like something that's uniquely different and speaks to my heart and my interests.
Yeah, as we always say, if you like it, I love it.
There it is.
If you like it, I love it. Go to the last one here. And I think this is necessary to say and needs some discussion, because it says, be willing to walk away from an unhealthy relationship. And we all know that there are some relationships that do reach a breaking point. Matter of fact, every relationship has a breaking point, and I think it's important for us to do everything that we can to avoid it. But if you're in a relationship with somebody that is so controlling, that it is at the abusive level, you can't control where you go, you're stuck in the house, there are some very serious, abusive, controlling relationships that you really do need to break out. I was listening to a story because Facebook has stories, and there's some really great stories on there about someone who was just brainwashed by the person that she was with. She was told that she was no good, that if she were to leave him, she was young too, a lot younger than him. If she were to leave him, that she would not be able to take care of herself. They had a young baby. She was like 19 and the husband was like 40. And he just brainwashed her so much to the fact that he controlled what she ate, when she slept, where she went, who she talked to, everything. It was a very controlling and abusive relationship. And then one day, she got some strength. She was online and read something, and she got some strength. And she packed up her baby, I think he was 5 years old, and said, come on, we're going. And I think she lied to the child and said, we're going to a friend's house. Packed up and ran away and spoke to someone. And that's what I want to get to. Is that if you are in an abusive situation that is controlling, manipulative, and you don't have a resource and outlet, you don't know where to go, make a call, reach out to someone who can help you to find out what's going on inside that relationship, and that would be the next step for you. What we don't recommend is people making decisions on their own, even though sometimes you're forced to do that.
Yeah.
But if you have a phone, if you have a computer, you can always reach out. There's so many services out there, free, 800 numbers. You know, you can always call Couples Academy. We have a free discovery call. I mean, there are places that you can call to get the support that you need, because not every relationship needs to be kept.
That's
saved
right.
or reserved.
And when you get to that point, when you're ready to just call it quits, throw in the towel, to her point, get wise counsel. Get somebody that can help guide you through that process, because the last thing we want to be is in an abusive, controlling relationship that does not serve. If you can get help and turn things around, well, yes, blessed and amen. But if you reach the breaking point, then you're going to have to do something, and you need somebody to guide you through that process, and that's why we make ourselves available. And so we would encourage you, find out more about us at couplesacademy.org. You can set up a free discovery call. We hope that you get the help that you need in order for your life and for your relationship to be transformed. But remember, not only do you not have a relationship with your spouse, you have a relationship with yourself and a relationship with God. And when that's intact, He will give you the wisdom and the guidance to make those right decisions. So guys, we hope you enjoyed the topic for today, how to deal with a controlling partner. We're going to have continual great conversations. Many questions came in. We will take the time to answer those questions. But for right now, that's the end of our show. We love you guys. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Tell people so that they can get what they need for their life and their marriage. See you on tomorrow.
Bye now.
Take care.
If you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you're interested in one of our restoration programs, contact us today at couplesacademy.org.